Hello and welcome to Tokyo Inklings. My name is CY and you can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on my Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I'm Foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter and have a blog at foodafan.com.
And this is episode 32. Welcome everybody once again. Thank you so much for being in attendance. Really happy to be here with you. Jacob, how's been your 2 weeks?
It's been working a lot. The last weekend was pretty tough, but finally a normal weekend again.
That's awesome. And you know, Jacob, we have some traditions on this podcast.
I'm aware of those.
You're aware of the traditions, so I'm gonna read out some reviews because we have really nice listeners who give us really great reviews. So I'm going to read them out, and the first one that I want to read is from Kwesi1102 via Apple Podcast, the United States of America. And the title is Excellent Podcast for Fountain Pen Enthusiasts, 5 stars. CY and Jacob, bravo for such an amazing podcast. I learn so much from you two and your guests every episode. As a fountain pen podcaster myself, I know how much work goes into what you do, so I really commend you for the research and effort you put in to make Tokyo Inklings accessible and fun. Can't wait to make it to Japan one day and go to these stores and shows with you. Well, thank you so much, Kwesi1102. You gotta send us a DM about which fountain pen podcast you make so that we can go check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. Thank you very much. The next one is from StacyBean59 via Apple Podcast, the United States of America. The title is Excellent! 5 stars. This is a unique and delightful foray into the universe of Japanese pens, inks, paper, and culture. Thanks to you, CY, Jacob, and wonderful guests for your unique content, extensive knowledge, and excellent podcast. Wow, very, very nice.
Thank you so much for that. We're happy to hear that.
Yes, indeed. We are super, super happy. And if you want your review to be read, please go on to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. 5 stars would be preferred, but you know, if some people have given us 1-star reviews, I think we've gotten 2 1-star reviews. but you know, honest review, give some feedback about how we can improve, and yeah, we're always open to that. You can also leave some comments after every single episode at our website, tokyoinklings.com, which, by the way, is maintained by Jacob. He's a very talented web manager. For our
not sure about that. It's a neglected website, but someday we will update it.
Yes, but you can also leave us a comment there and have a discussion with your fellow listeners. So, let's get right into the heart of it because I know we've got a lot of things to cover today, Jacob. Let's start with some acquisitions because I think you and I both had some acquisitions. And you received a pen back from Bokumondo.
Yeah, so last time I said I had a Bokumondo pen on its way, but I didn't say more than that. And since then I've gotten this pen, and I think maybe some listeners may have seen it in my feed, but let me still explain what it is. So Hiroko wants to be able to work on pilot capless pens, or VP pens, because she knows those are very popular. The problem with capless pens is that you need to remove the clip and thus the entire nose cone part in order to do an urushi treatment. And it's not trivial to do that. There are some instructions online. I think Richard Binder has it on his website, but it's not nearly as simple as, say, removing a Pruger clip.
And I will say that these instructions, they already look very complicated. And I have to say, doing it in real life is actually a bit more complicated than those instructions because I've tried and I have not been able to get my capless clips off.
Right. So I happen to have a second-hand capless pen. So I told her that she could use this pen as a guinea pig. If she can remove the clip, great. If it gets damaged in the process, then don't worry about it. So she took the pen and she tried to remove the clip and nose cone, and it actually worked. And since she was able to remove it, we said it would be cool to do some kind of urushi design on it, right? And I can't remember if it was her idea or mine, but we had this vague idea about something with a Swedish theme. Probably something like yellow and blue. So I found some photos for inspiration, including Sweden's national emblem and some medals and decoration from Sweden's royal orders of knighthood. So very vague, but that was, the inspiration. She took that and she ended up making a blue karanuri design, so blue with like these speckles. And as usually with her recent designs, there's a bit of aluminum powder on it, so it sparkles a bit, especially when you rotate the pen. But then she ended up making this like motif on the barrel, like a small crown or a coronet that's filled with gold dust. I think that one is from the national emblem. So it looks, and since the pen has gold trims, this motif looks quite good. It's an overall good combination, and I honestly wasn't quite sure what to expect since the photos was quite vague, but I was very pleasantly surprised again, and we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, I think that the only unfortunate thing about the pen is that the crown doesn't align to the clip.
Right. And
I think Hiroko mentioned that she thought she had made sure that they aligned, but the final thing didn't align. And I think I suggested that you can put in an O-ring on the threads to make the screw a bit tighter.
Yeah.
And that way you should be able to align that crown. But I have to say it's quite a nice pen. This doesn't mean that Hiroko is open to doing works with motifs, though, right?
Yeah, so there are two things here. It's hard. She's sometimes open to do it. I think this time there was a reason why she wanted to do this as an experiment. I can't remember what it was, but also with capless pens, she has tried a few capless pens now. She's tried to remove the nose cone, and the success rate hasn't been 100%. So for that reason, she is understandably not comfortable doing this operation on customer pens yet. But she is considering, we've been discussing, and she's considering buying a few capless pens and trying to remove the nose cone. And if it's successful, she might sell that. So that might be an option for customers who want capless pens with urushi.
Right, but what about the motifs?
It's hard to say. I asked her specifically about this one, and she said probably not, but because right now her queue, her waiting list is very long, but she might be open to do that eventually.
Because what I'm understanding is that she doesn't want to spend a lot of time going back and forth with the customer about the specific motifs, and customers always have one image of a motif, and then the real thing turns out to be maybe a little bit different. And I think she's a bit cognizant of that. So, to my knowledge, she's always been avoiding doing motifs.
There are two things here, right? So first of all, it takes her a lot of time to communicate in English. Now she's getting help with English communication from some various people. So maybe that's partially a solved problem now. But the other problem is that people usually want something fairly intricate, some like university logo or whatever, and she's not sure she's able to recreate that in urushi, right? But if she's already done it once, then sometimes she's willing to do it again. So for example, she did this snowflake once as an experiment, and since she did it successfully once, she was okay to do it a few more times for other pens.
All right. So that's good information. Anything else that you've gotten in recently?
I think I got some more Pilot pens, but I can't remember which ones I got.
I've gotten some pens in as well, and I'll just spend a brief minute talking about them.
Sure.
The first one that I want to talk about is Yoseika's pen. So
yes.
Yoseika collaborated with Sailor And of course, Yoseka is a small kind of boutique-ish stationery shop out in New York. And they've collaborated with Sailor to create a Pro Gear Slim. Now, I think this is notable for several reasons. First of all, it's not the first time that Sailor has done a shop exclusive for a US store. That's not the first time. But as far as I'm aware, it is the first time that they've done a shop exclusive finial. So that was really, really cool.
Right.
And I asked, they actually did a pen with Sailor, an ink with Ink Institute as well. And then they had some pins. So the pen is limited edition, and once they sell out, they're not going to have any more. The ink is special edition, so they can get more if they want to in the future. And Yoseka, if you're listening to this and I get any of this wrong, please do let me know. But after I found out that they were in fact limited edition and not special edition, I decided to grab one in Zoom for Akane. And I've ground it down to something akin to a cross concord. So a regular concord nib, if you go and buy a concord nib, that's just bent downwards, right?
Right.
But a cross concord is not bent at all. A cross concord nib is just two nibs stacked one on top of each other. And
it's kind of an upside down cross music, right?
Kind of, in a way. I would say it's more of like a upside down cross point. But what's interesting, I think, about the cross concords is that the tipping kind of bends downwards a bit and kind of looks like a bird's beak.
Yeah.
And so I tried to recreate that grind on a single layer Zoom nib. And I was successful in doing it. And it's very, very nice. I really like it. And I think, there's always been an idea from Itoya Portfolio that I think 1911 shapes sell better. So a lot of the US exclusives up till now have been 1911s. Now, they recently came out with the Too Hot Habanero, and that was a Pro Gear with a custom finial. But I think most of the limited editions, Wicked Witch of the West, you have the Loch Ness Monster, you have the Sailor Pen of the Year 2021, and those were all 1911s. So I'm hoping that that they do two things. One, I hope that Yoseka's success shows that the Pro Gear is a very popular model and is probably more geared towards collectors who are going to buy multiple pens instead of the 1911, which is probably more geared towards a single pen buyer.
But that's interesting, right? Because a popular opinion in the community is that a lot of people seem to prefer flat top pens, but then, as you say, maybe the sales numbers suggest that the profit shapes sell better. So maybe it's just a vocal minority that prefer flat tops, while the silent majority prefer the profit shape.
Well, I think that I think several factors come into this, right? One is availability. If the only thing that is available in your market is the round top 1911, then your sales are going to reflect that. That is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The second part of the puzzle, in my opinion, is the single pen buyer and the multi-pen buyer. The single pen buyer buys one pen, maybe for a gift or for themselves, but they only buy one pen, right? And so it's likely that these single pen buyers or more traditional pen buyers want to have a more classic cigar shape. Right? That's true. But what about buyers who buy more than 10 pens, right? More than 15 pens. So I think there's a different trend in terms of course, the masses, right? maybe buy more round top. But
Right.
when you think of, okay, who is this pen targeted for? If it's for a collector market, maybe flat tops are the way to go. So I hope that Yoseika's success can prove this to Itoya Portfolio. And the second thing I want to mention is that a lot of these UX exclusives seem to come in different sizes. They seem to come in both the full size and the slim size. So if you look at the Loch Ness Monster, Witch of the West, I think they had both sizes.
Yeah.
I would much more prefer to see them concentrate on a single size for the release rather than dilute the sales for multiple sizes. And then you can, do some custom finials, something that is more of a draw rather than just a different color.
One thing about sizing that I recently found confusing, I've noticed that various people call the full size pen, so the Prophet 21 equivalent, they call it a standard size. But for us, calling that standard is rather confusing because for us, standard means the small one.
Yes, and I think even in the US, standard is a small because they have the 1911L, which is large, which we call full size. And then they have the 1911S, and the S doesn't stand for small. The S stands for standard.
Because I've heard the term standard being used to describe the one in the middle, so not the slim and not the king size, but the middle one.
Yes. Yeah, that would be incorrect. But yeah, so really happy with this Yoseika pen, and they were very, very nice. I bought 2 of their slim notebooks, and they were very nice to send to me the original notebook that I believe you got, Jacob, I think 2 years ago from them. And I've actually been writing Chinese characters in Conifer notebooks or not Conifer notebooks, but rather they have a practice loose leaf for Chinese characters. I've been writing that in that for like 10 years. So I'm really excited to try the notebook. But they told me that Conifer is discontinuing the paper, so they have had to discontinue that notebook.
So that's the reason, because I remember, as you say, they came up with a new notebook fairly recently, the slim one. So the slim uses different paper, right? So the big one that I got was called like Conifer KBC or KBU2, I believe.
Some numbers.
Yes, some numbers. And I also heard somewhere that would be discontinued.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna hopefully be able to try out this Yoseika paper. But really happy overall. It got to me within a week, and I just want to say thank you so much to Yoseika. They're a wonderful shop, and always looking forward to seeing what they've have had in the shop. Their stories, their content, it's all really great.
Yeah, it's a very nice little shop, and I think they do a particularly good job explaining like the story behind products.
Exactly, and they're kind of like they feel more like a family,
Yes.
They're not just trying to sell you a product, but they're trying to sell you into this overall lifestyle.
Yeah.
All right. The second thing that I want to talk about are Conids. That's right, not Conid, but Conids. So I was very lucky to be able to acquire 2 Conids. The first one is a regular in titanium section in full demonstrator. And that means that will be my second Conid regular. And then on top of that, one of our good friends in the US sent to me or sold to me a Conid Antwerpen. So this is the red Conid king size in the red Juma material. And I have to say, Conid, the pens are very well built. You're holding the pen, and especially the king size, I have to say, just feels like a very quality pen. Interesting thing is that I don't think the king size is much larger than the regular. It uses a bigger size nib.
It's a bit more girthy, right?
Yeah, it's a bit more girthy, but it's not actually like longer. I think it's much.
Right.
It's a lot like the 146 and the 149. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about Konid later. But the bulk filling system is quite nice. For me, it's quite intuitive to use. But yeah, I'm really happy with these pens. And now I have to sell some of my other pens that are being less used. So need to start selling.
So wait, so are you saying you're going to keep all your Konids?
I might sell one of them. It really depends on how what I want to do with the original regular that I already had. But let's see. Yeah, the ideal would be to have a minimalistica, a regular, and a king size.
So I feel like Konids are the pen community's version of Bitcoin. There's a lot of speculation going on, and there's some wild price fluctuations.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so that's what we have for acquisitions today.
Right.
And we have quite some saucy, let's say, saucy content for you today. The first one, and I have limited knowledge on this, but Jacob, it's to my understanding that you called Tomoegawa about a certain rumor.
So let's take a step back first. So yeah, there's been a bit of like rumors and speculation about Tomoe River recently. And I think both you and I have had we've had people contacting us, asking us if we know more and so on. And as you know, I had a day off earlier this week, so I spent a little bit of time trying to see what I could find out about it. So let me just explain what I found, and maybe you can add your findings on top of that. So just to start with a background. So, there's this company, Tomoegawa, right? And Tomoegawa is the company that developed and manufactures Tomoe River, and they've been around for well over 100 years. They're listed on Tokyo Stock Exchange, and they started doing paper making. Since then, they have diversified into various industries. But they put out an announcement 2 years ago in 2019, saying that as part of our cost reduction and consolidation activities, we're going to shut down one of our paper making machines. Called the Shizuoka No. 7 paper machine, and that happens to be the machine that made Tomoe River at the time. But then they said, regarding Tomoe River specifically, we're going to move the bulk of the production to another machine that we have, the Shizuoka No. 9 machine. And that's when this whole discussion about old Tomoe River and new Tomoe River started. So both old and new Tomoe River is made by the same company, Tomoegawa, same location, Shizuoka, but in two different machines. Right? So that's sort of the background. And then fast forward to this year and to April. So there was another announcement last month by a company called Sakai Technical Paper. And we talked about them before, but they co-developed, according to Tomoegawa, they co-developed this Tomoe River paper. And they sell their own paper products, so they sell notebooks and loose leaf paper. And especially in Japan, if you buy a Tomoe River notebook or loose leaf paper, you're almost guaranteed to buy something with a Sakai logo on it, right? And they put out an announcement last month saying that all of these Tomoe River SKUs that we have are going to be discontinued soon because we no longer have access to the paper. And that's when people understandably got very worried. Like, that's where the rumors started. And not long after that, Kingdom Note, one of our favorite retailers, they tweeted that we're going to stop selling these Tomoe River products, so buy them now while you can. And people started panic buying Tomoe River, right? So that's the situation we are in right now. So I contacted Sakai Technical Paper this week, and I asked them, was your announcement about all of your Tomoe River products, or was it only the old Tomoe River, or does it also cover new Tomoe River that made in a number 9 machine? And I specifically asked them about that. Are you also discontinuing what's made in a number 9 machine? And they told me that our announcement is specifically about old Tomoe River. So Tomoe River made by the number 7 machine. Loose leaf paper made in the number 9 machine, so the new Tomoe River, will continue. But, here's the but, they're saying that we have heard that Tomoegawa plans to shut down the number 9 machine as well in September this year. So hearing that, I went to Tomoegawa's website. So like all listed companies, they have a section with like investor relations, right? And there were 2 interesting documents there published just 1 week ago. One document was the earnings report for the financial year ending in March. And in this earnings report, you can see that the company as a whole is not doing that well, but their paper business in particular is really struggling. So their sales are down like 15% and they are deep in the red. They lost like almost 400 million yen last year just in the paper division. And they are explaining in this report that this is a declining business, has been declining for a while, but the COVID pandemic has accelerated that. But also we are struggling with aging, costly machines. So that is the background to the second document, which is the even more interesting one. So there's a new medium-term management plan for Tomoegawa. And in this plan, they're basically explaining how they're going to get the company back on its feet. And they are outlining various initiatives, including some like new products and some new initiatives, but they're also outlining various cost savings measures. And one of the specific ones that they are outlining in this public report is that they are going to shut down the number 9 machine, so the machine that makes new Tomoe River, before the end of this financial year. And they did not explain, or they did not outline any plan to move production. So based on this, we can't say for sure that production of Tomoe River will stop, but what we can say for sure is that the machine that currently makes Tomoe River is going to be decommissioned, and we know that the whole paper business for Tomoegawa is a declining business, so it's not clear that it's going to be worth it for them to move that production. But one silver lining, one reason to be maybe a little bit hopeful is that in the very same report, they're talking about how they are working on new, smaller and more efficient paper-making machines. So there's at least a glimmer of hope here that they might move production of Tomoe River to one of the new and cost-effective machines.
Right. So what I hear is several different things, and I don't know too much other than this one guy who posted on the Fountain Pen Network on Facebook, which basically corroborates with what you have said. A few notes here. The first is that when I read this, I realized that I had never used the so-called new Tomoe River paper yet, because I think you said as well, Sakai Technical never used the number 9 machine in their products.
So sorry, just one thing about that. So what they told me is that production of new Tomoe River will continue for now, but that is only loose leaf paper. They didn't say specifically that is Sakai branded loose leaf paper or someone else selling loose leaf paper, but it's possible that there are Sakai branded loose leaf paper with new Tomoe River. But you're right, that there are no notebooks from Sakai Technical Paper with new Tomoe River paper.
Right. And I only use the Sakai Technical notebook. So I even, I was talking to Brad Dowdy last year. He had me on an interview on one of his membership podcasts. And he said, what do you think about the new and old Tomoe River? I said, well, you know what? I can't tell a difference. Well, now I know why, because I had been using the old Tomoe River all along.
Yeah.
Other companies apparently did make notebooks with the new Tomoe River. But I have not had the pleasure to try those. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I do have a huge stockpile of Tomoe River notebooks.
I'm sure you do.
Technical. So the only thing that I regret is not buying more of the 62 GSM, because I think that's a really, really good paper. So that's what I heard. The thing that I think will be interesting is the future production of Hobonichi notebooks, because they're famous for using Tomoe River.
Yeah, but I'm sure, there are plenty of like Techo-like paper options that they have to choose from, so I'm sure that they will find something fairly similar. Another thing worth mentioning is that Sakai Technical Paper are themselves saying that we are currently developing replacement products. We don't know exactly what those replacement products will be and how similar they will be, but they are developing something that is meant to replace Tomoe River.
Right, but given the outcry that there was in the first change in Tomoe River production, I understand that there are many alternatives out there. So we've said on the podcast, for example, I particularly like the new Kokuyo paper, the Zara Zara paper. Right. I really like that. But it doesn't show the shading as well. You have Grafilo, which I think is the closest competitor. But, they are still different products. And I don't think Grafilo makes in as large quantities as Tomoe River used to.
And it's quite expensive.
Yeah, it's quite expensive. You have Cosmo Air Light, which everybody's talking about, but personally, I hate that paper because it actually draws out the ink too much. And then you have the various bank papers. So you had the Takasago bank, which I kind of enjoy, but again, it doesn't show the shading as well. Now, given that in at least the fountain pen community, there's quite an emphasis on paper, and even if Hobonichi were to have found an alternative, I think that, there would be many, many people who might not be happy about it. And one of the advantages I think that Hobonichi had over Jibun Techo is that Hobonichi uses Tomoe River and Jibun Techo uses a paper that bleeds with fountain pens.
Well, so with Jibun Techo, there are a few different types of refills, right? So there's one called the Idea refill, which is this graph paper. Up until recently, the Idea refills, they used Tomoe River. They recently changed from Tomoe River to Kokuyo's own developed paper, which is supposed to have certain advantages. It doesn't curl as much, I think.
Right.
Yeah, but up until recently, it was Tomoe River.
Yeah. So I'm having a feeling that maybe because Jibun Techo is a huge, that's like a huge brand, right?
Yeah.
So that probably had a big impact on Tomoegawa's financials, losing that account. So yeah, I guess overall, first I'm happy that I got my 5-year Hobonichi when I did, because then I can use it for the next 5 years. Second, I think I'll need to have to explore some alternatives to Tomoe River, because that's the paper that I do all of my pen testing on. It's what I write with at work. So I'm not very happy about the news, but that is what it is.
I think there's so much interesting paper out there, and I think if this means people are more willing to try various other types of paper, whether that is Logical Airlight, Midori MD, Life, Apica, whatever it may be, maybe this is a good time for paper makers. Maybe people will find some new interesting favorites. Because another thing related to that is people. I mean, we always have this one word like fountain pen friendly, right? But that means different things to different people. You have to unpack that idea to see, okay, are you talking about the texture? Are you talking about the show through? Are you talking about the dry time? Are you talking about how ink pulls up and like results in sheen, right? And depending on what features you're interested in, you might find different types of paper more appealing to you. So personally, for example, I really like a good texture. I like relatively fast dry time and minimal show through. So I tend to gravitate toward Midori MD for that reason.
Yeah. I think when you consider that Conifer is discontinuing that paper with a lot of numbers in it, Tomoe River already once moving production to a different machine due to cost, and then now saying that after a year and a half they're going to discontinue it completely. I think the silver lining is that Sakai Technical is developing an alternative, but I'm not sure I can call it a good thing for paper manufacturers. I do agree that there are a lot of interesting papers out there, but there was a group of manufacturers who did maybe produce paper that is more expensive than the standard run-of-the-mill Kokuyo campus paper, but that worked really, really well for a small group of users. And I feel like we're seeing less of that rather than more. I think we're seeing more of the various different paper types, but those papers I feel don't serve this group of users as well.
I'm not sure if Tomoegawa shutting down their machines should be seen as an indication that the industry is not doing well. It might be just that it's mainly about their aging machinery and not so much about their sales, because they don't break down their paper sales by type. So I don't know if this decline has anything to do with Tomoe River or is there other types. My suspicion is that this is more about their expensive aging machinery, because if it's worth it for, say, Kokuyo and a few other manufacturers to spend the time to develop all new paper types, right, then that suggests that it's worth doing it for other manufacturers as well.
But Kokuyo is specifically a stationer, right? Like, they specifically make stationary products, whereas I think Tomoe River, stationary products is a very small part of their business. I think they're making conducive fiber carbon sheets, right? They're more.
Well, both of these companies are very big and diversified, right? So I mean, Kokuyo builds entire offices, like office furnitures and stuff, right? So they have all kinds of businesses as well.
Right. Well, I think only time can tell, I guess. It's really cliche, but only time can tell. As far as I see, you can still see Tomoe River on Tomoegawa's website.
Yeah.
But going back to the point of, yes, they are very diversified companies, but if you go to Tomoegawa's website, on the top of it says they make electronic parts.
Yeah, exactly.
So
by the way, one more thing about the paper going away. We have been hearing for the last maybe 5 years that one of Kobeha's papers, like Listio one, I can't pronounce it, is going to be discontinued because the machine broke or whatever, and they can't replace it or they can't repair it. This paper has been around now for at least 5 years since that announcement, and is still readily available, easy to find. So I'm not sure if Tomoe River will disappear from the shelves that fast.
Yeah, but I did go to Maruzen today, and they didn't have the 62 GSM notebook in stock.
But that one in general, I think, has always been a bit harder to find in Japan. I think that was introduced fairly recently compared to the 52.
Yeah, but they used to have a huge section of Tomoe River notebooks, right? That was on the very top of the shelf. They had at least, I think, 4 different sections for Tomoe River. That has actually been downgraded to a small section that's about a third of what it used to be.
So maybe there's panic buying happening now. It's the new toilet paper.
It's a new toilet paper. Anyways, next topic we have is about the Moonman Q1 and Moonman in general. I think let's talk about the Moonman Q1, and then we can go into the various kind of peripheral but yet central themes.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So the Moonman Q1 is basically the remake of a Tombow egg.
Yeah.
And I'm actually a bit unhappy with you, Jacob, because you went and ordered one by yourself. Because I sent
what did
this
you want it to do? It's free shipping.
I sent this to the group, and I was like, "Hey, look at this! Isn't this really cool?" And then we had like different people saying, "Yeah, I want one." So I think we had like, we had like three people wanting one, and then you went off and ordered your own.
I wanted one as soon as possible. I have FOMO.
Yeah, so I think I ordered one not long after that as well.
Right.
So hopefully we'll be getting that in. But I think they actually did the Tombow egg better than the Tombow egg.
Well, the colors are certainly more interesting than the original.
Yeah, and it looks like it's using a number 5 nib.
I'm a bit curious about that too. I looked at the nib and I agree that, given the dimensions, it's probably number 5. But I didn't recognize the engraving. Maybe there's a new Moonman nib that I just haven't seen before, but it looked slightly different from, for example, the nib in that other recent controversial Moonman pen. It had a different engraving.
Yeah. And lots of people have texted me saying, would a pen like that even be comfortable to use in long writing sessions?
Absolutely. That's the whole point.
Yeah, and that's what I told them, that apparently, I wasn't the product developer, so I don't know for sure, but apparently the Tombow Egg and the Platinum Glamour were created for older people to write longer sessions, because I think it's true that the smaller the pen, the harder you tend to grip it, even subconsciously. So, my ballpoint pens that are very slim, I feel that it's much harder to write with them.
Absolutely, I agree. I can't use slim pens.
Yeah, and I think this there's been another Moonman release called the Moonman C3.
Right.
And the Moonman C3 apparently looks like one of the Franklin Christophs, because it's got the kind of tapered ends that end in like a flat top, and apparently it looks a lot like a Franklin Christoph 46. Go on.
I'm not an expert on Franklin Christoph pens. I'm more than willing to say that I know what a 46 looks like. I can agree that there may be some inspiration here. I would not call it the copycat.
Yeah, so that's what I said on a Pen Addict Slack channel. And I'm not going to name names, I don't think that's productive, but I said that I don't think, for what it's worth, I don't think that is a copy. At least it is no more a copy than a Sailor 1911 is a copy of Montblanc's 145.
Right.
It is no more a copy than Omas, the Omas Paragons of the older Wahl Eversharps. We have tons of pens and, just a few shapes.
Yeah.
So I think whether something is like a rip-off or a copy should be measured in, when you look at the pen, do you know that it's a Moonman, or could you actually honestly mistake it for the other brand? And here's the thing. Moonman has done copies before, right?
Yeah.
The Moonman F9 is a direct copy of the Mont Blanc Rouge et Noir, right? The Moonman M800 is a direct copy of the Leonardo Momento Zero, right? So Moonman has done copies before. This pen, I don't think is a copy because first of all, the size of the nib is not the same. And the second of all, there's a huge Moonman logo that's like slapped on the side of this pen. So there's like 0% chance that you can mistake this pen for being a Franklin Christoph. Absolutely 0%. And some people were saying, oh, but they even copied the threads that were at the front of the section. Well, you know what? Lots of pens have this. My Rouge et Noir has this. My 1912, my Mont Blanc 1912 has this. You know, my safety fillers have this. So front threading is nothing new.
Right.
And I want to get to the point that we have many beloved brands, right? And Sailor, for example, is one of them. But the vast majority of Sailor pens are actually carbon copies of other, specifically European brands. So the Rialo is a carbon copy of the Aurora 88. And the Aurora official Instagram account actually liked my post breaking the two pens down. So that's like literally a part for part copy of the pen.
And this was not just in the past. I mean, there are more recent examples of pens. Western brands copying others. So I mean, one well-known one is the Monteverde's Monsai. It's just a Sailor Pro Color copycat, right?
Yep. The Platinum 3776, that's a copy of the 145. Even Sailor's 115th anniversary model, which we talked about on this podcast, that is almost a part for part carbon copy of Ohashido pens, especially with the huge rings around the cap ring and the body ring. Except that Sailor's doesn't have a clip. So my point is that, look, there are many things you can criticize Chinese manufacturers about. Perhaps it's that their finishing is not as good, or the quality of their nibs are not as good. They only have steel nibs, whatever. But we, as not you and I, but in terms of the greater, I think, fountain pen community, I think that we give specifically to Chinese manufacturers more grief than other manufacturers who are doing almost exactly the same thing as them. So we praise Sailor, even though most of their pens are copies of European brands, but we condemn Moonman. And I hear things like, I will never buy a Moonman because they just copy other brands.
Yeah.
Which I think is a ridiculous statement to make, because if you look at Omas, right? Omas is a very, very storied company, but half their pens were copies of Parker and Wall Eversharp. I have an Omas pen that I received. The clip is literally an arrow clip that copied Parker. And the rest, their faceted pens are copies of Wall Eversharps. So what is the point of going on and on and on about Moonman making pens that look similar?
Yeah, the problem is specifically the double standard, right? I mean, it's fine to say it's fine to say that Moonman has done some modern homages to certain models, right? Which is true, but you can't do that at the same time. Just neglect the fact that other brands have done similar things.
Yeah, and the same people that were talking about this Moonman and how it's a copy and how they hate it, were totally silent when literally 48 hours later, I was like, oh, well, the 115th, that's a copy of Ohashido. And the argument that was made to me was that, oh, but it's, Chinese manufacturing, they have an advantage in manufacturing cost, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That might all be true, that are copying smaller manufacturers which don't have the same production capacity. But again, Ohashido, very small company. I think it's maybe like one or two people making pens. And you don't say anything about Sailor, right? In the exact same channel. So I don't think that anyone is being racist. I don't think that that's what's happening. It's not like, oh, I hate Chinese people, so Chinese manufacturing is bad. That's not what I'm saying, right? Although I'm sure there are people who do think like that. I think the greater conversation is, are we saying this because they're a new company and they sell pens really cheaply? Because if we are, those same arguments were made about Japanese pens back in the early 20s and early 30s, almost a century ago, right? So you literally wouldn't have the Japanese pen manufacturing industry if Japanese manufacturers didn't copy brands like Onoto, didn't copy brands like Parker, right? Platinum as a brand literally would not exist if they didn't copy Parker.
Right.
So I just have a huge issue with this double standard, because I think that copying pens, right, there are some, moral arguments to be made. But overall, I think if the place of manufacturer is not a huge, is not a very well-known or very well-regarded doesn't have a well-regarded pen manufacturing industry, right? Copying these designs can actually bring up the entire industry in that space. Whereas I'm wondering, is this about gatekeeping designs? Is it about gatekeeping, or is it something else? Because, and here's the kicker, right? The people who are buying the Moonman pens are not the same people who buy the Franklin Christoph pen, right? They're two different markets. And a lot of times, right, if you buy an M800, that doesn't mean that you will never go and buy a Leonardo Momento Zero. Because if you buy an M800, I think two things happen. One is you are never in the financial position to buy a Leonardo Momento Zero anyways, so you saw an M800 and you bought it, right? Second is maybe people want to try out this shape before upgrading to Leonardo Momento Zero. So I think the second part, right, that's actually something that happens a lot more, especially in this hobby, where, you might start with a Jinhao 51A, and then, 3 years later, you've got a bunch of Parker 51s. We see that happening all the time. So the market is different, the target is different, and I'm really not in favor of this kind of double standard. If we want to talk about Moonman copying, then we should go after Pilot, we should go after Sailor, we should go after Platinum, we should go after Monteverde, we should go after Omas, never buy an Omas again. So, I just really don't like that kind of attitude.
So Moonman is a very interesting case, I think, because I first heard about Moonman back in 2017, I think. So there was this blog, I'm sure you remember, Frank Underwater. Yeah, it was this fantastic blog that, introduced the Western world to Chinese fountain pens, brands that we otherwise would never have heard about. And that's when I heard about the Moonman M1, which may have been their first model back in 2017. And I really love the Moonman M1. And the thing is, Moonman M1 was not a copycat of anything. The follow-up pen M2 was not a copycat. The follow-up pen M3 was not a copycat. The follow-up M5 also was not a copycat. So the first few pens they made were all more or less original. I mean, you could see inspiration, but that was the same level as any other pen. It's only recently that they have started doing what you might call more sort of controversial pens. And I'm wondering why that is there. I assume that that is simply what the market wants.
So, I think Moonman is at its best when it experiments with different shapes and designs. I don't think they're actually actively making the F9 anymore. But I think they're experimenting because in the last 2 years, Moonman has released tons and tons of models. And the models that I remember them specifically copying in the last 2 years are the M800. This C3. And apparently they made a copy of one of Sean Newton's pens.
Yeah, not that one. Sure. I mean, some people say that was not actually. That was like an open source design, if you will. So that was allowed.
So in my mind, of the 10 models that Moonman makes, right, 2 models are copies. I think they're at their best when they make stuff like the Moonman T1.
Yes.
Right? That's amazing. Wasn't the T2 like a stipula kind of thing?
It was similar, but the filling system was different. I think material was different too. Yeah, but it close, but not, I still wouldn't call it a copycat.
Was a different filling system. It was more like a TWSBI Go.
Yeah.
So I think they can make really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But railing against them for their 2 copies means that we're not going to get the 8 other interesting things. Right? Like, if you don't like that they're copying designs, right? I think a very easy way is to not buy those copy designs. So I don't have an M800. I don't have I have an F9, but I'm giving it away. But I bought it just to really compare with my Rouge et Noir. But if you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. But you also don't have to, go on the internet and say mean things about them every single time their name is brought up.
Right.
Interestingly, though, speaking of Sean Newton, he recently tried to sell some Moonman pens on an auction. And Jacob, I think you know more than me on this topic.
Yeah, so I found this very interesting thread on FPN. So I think Sean Newton, he is selling various pens on eBay, not just his own pens, but pens that people donate to him for scholarships, I believe. And he's been doing this for a while, but recently, a few weeks ago, when he was trying to sell a Moonman pen among other pens, he got a takedown notice. The eBay listing was removed, and the explanation given to him was that it infringes on some trademark. So there was a German company that says they own the trademark, the Moonman trademark, and it turns out that this company is the company that owns Kaweco. So basically, it is Kaweco going after Moonman, and there was a lot of discussion after that in this thread. And what seems to be the case is that the company behind Kaweco is trying to prevent people from selling Moonman pens on eBay and Etsy and Amazon by registering Moonman as a trademark in Europe and elsewhere.
it's hilarious because they not only trademarked Moonman, they also trademarked Wing Sung, right?
Yeah, so when I saw this, I wondered if they trademarked Moonman, did they trademark anything else? So someone had a link to that German website where you can search for trademarks, and I typed in a few Chinese names, and I found that both Wing Sung and D-Like were trademarked by the same company around the same time. And Wing Sung in particular is interesting because that name has been it's not a new name.
Wing Sung is older than the modern Kaweco.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know what Kaweco is playing at. I think it's absolutely insane of them to do this. You know, I think this is worse than Moonman copying the pens, right? Like you're actually actively trying to take their brand, and I don't think Moonman actually copies Kaweco products.
That's what I'm curious about. Yeah, so I mean, you can make an argument that both D-Like and Wing Sung, or the hero Wing Sung, have made pens that look a lot like Kaweco sports pens. But I agree with you. I can't remember any Moonman pens that look like Kaweco pens. So either I can think of two explanations. Either they know something about how these companies are related, maybe they are closely related, or one thing you often see on Amazon and on Etsy is that people just use Moonman and Pen BBS. They just add that as like search keyword for any Chinese pen, right?
Right.
But one result of this that you already see today is that if you go on eBay and you search for Moonman Q1, you might not find much, but they are using a new name, which is the Chinese spelling, like Mujiang. I'm gonna butcher the pronunciation, but if you search for that, yes, if you search for that on eBay now, you're gonna find the pens.
Yeah. I'm still seeing Moonman. I just searched Moonman fountain pen, and I'm still seeing Moonman. But I just think it's so weird what they're doing. It's weird. Like it doesn't make sense to me. But you know what? If anybody listening to the podcast has any information, let me know.
Yeah, this is interesting for sure.
Maybe we should email Moonman.
My Mandarin is a bit rusty. I think you will have to help me with that.
All right. So, we've rambled long enough on this. We have a few more topics, but we are almost out of time. So, do you want to talk quickly about Sailor Minis, and I'll talk about the Nagasawa and the Lamy?
Sure. Yeah. So Sailor recently announced that they're gonna sell a few more slim minis. I think they're gonna start selling them this month with the zoom and music nib options coming next month. So what is interesting about this announcement is how boring the pens are, right? Because nowadays you associate Sailor with like colorful, sparkly, interesting pens, and even their standard line of slim minis. They have these interesting pastel colors, right? They first had the first line of pastel colors, and then they had the new Morocco theme, right?
Yeah.
But these new pens, they are in ivory, maroon, and black, which are some of the most traditional colors you can imagine. So I'm curious about why they are releasing pens in these colors.
Yeah, I don't really understand it either. It seems a bit off-brand, but maybe this would be better as like a gift product to non-fountain pen people. I'm just really not sure why they did that. Like things like that confuse me from Sailor.
Either that, or this tells us something that we didn't know about what actually sells, right? Because they have in their standard lineup today, they have black pens, they have white pens, I think they also have maroon pens. They've had that for a while, right?
Yeah.
maybe those are selling better than we expect.
Gotta go ask the ladies at the floor.
Yeah, have to do that.
All right. Few things really quickly. Nagasawa has announced a new line of inks that specifically they said were developed. The concept was developed and planned by the female staff. So it's called the Onomatopoeia, and it's a group of very colorful and bright colors that are in the pot bottle.
Except that these are 25 milliliters. So I think there's a smaller version of the old bottles.
Oh, I didn't realize that they were smaller. I thought that they were the same, but these are smaller?
Yeah, I think I saw they were being 25 milliliters.
Let me check this website. Wow, I didn't know. Yeah, they're 25 milliliters. You're right. And they have 6 colors now. They have yellow, pink, blue, green, orange, and purple. And they have these whimsical little names like yellow is Kira Kira and pink is Doki Doki. So it's all of these like little sounds that kind of sound like they're supposed to be sounds that imitate actual sounds in real life.
Yeah.
But they have stuff like gnocchi gnocchi. I'm really not sure what that's supposed to sound like.
There might be some Kansai Ben here.
Right, or poro poro. I really don't know what that is. Kira kira is supposed to be the sound of like sparkling.
Right. That's the yellow one, right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure that yellow had like I didn't know that sparkles had sounds.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, but anyways, they have this new line. I thought it was pretty cool. So,
but the colors are kind of boring. But I don't think that really matters. And I think this tells us something about the ink market today. No one is going to buy this like sui ink because this is the perfect shade of blue that they have been looking for forever, right? They're buying this because it's a fun name and it's a cute bottle.
Yeah, and that is the genius of Nagasawa.
It is. It is.
Okay, last thing to quickly talk about is this Lamy Red. So I follow some accounts on Instagram, some retailers, and Ink House Hong Kong had teased on their stories this red Lamy. So they call it Lamy Dialogue 3 Red.
With a special nib. Is that the one?
Yes, it's in Chinese, and it says that it has a special nib that is cut and ground to write kanji, which I think is so interesting because when I look at a close up of this nib, it just looks like a regular blob of ball nib to me. But it's interesting because you now see that Western brands are copying Sailor. In particular, you have Aurora, right? Copying, like straight up copying Sailor's Naginata.
And then it was Santini too, right?
Santini, Mont Blanc as well. They are developing a calligraphy, quote unquote, calligraphy nib that welds the tipping on like a fude nib, and now Lamy wants in on the game as well. So I just found that quite fascinating, and worth the mention. It's the same retail price as the other Lamy dialogues, so no special markup, but it is at least a Hong Kong exclusive, if not a store exclusive.
What is the price again?
It's about 4,000 Hong Kong dollars, so that's about $350 US.
For a Naginata like nib, that sounds almost reasonable.
Well, I've not tried the nib, so I
Right.
really can't say. The pictures, honestly, like if you just showed me these pictures, I would have said it's a regular nib.
But there seems to be a trend for sure now. I mean, it takes many forms, but the idea of making a nib that is particularly suitable for like Chinese and Japanese calligraphy, right? That
Yeah.
we see more and more of that. Then more recently, even Pen BBS, right? All of theirs look more like a traditional architect nib almost.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Probably because the consumer market is 1.3 billion people in China, so there is a huge consumer market there. But yeah, we'll have to see if this trend continues.
Yeah, it might be good news for nib grinders. More demand for Naginata-like grinds.
Yep, absolutely. All right, I think that's it for today. Anything else we want to add?
No, I think this is a long but interesting episode.
Yeah. And so yeah, thank you everybody so much for tuning in. Again, my name is CY, and you can find me on my website at tokyostationpens.com, on Instagram at tokyostationpens, and on Twitter at tokyostationmnh.
And my name is Jacob. I am Foodafan on Instagram and on Twitter, and have a blog at foodafan.com.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.